Hi, Josh.
Hi, Amanda. What are we talking about today?
I thought we would talk about severance agreements. We get a lot of calls from potential clients to review a severance agreement that their former employer has offered them. So, this is something that we have a lot of experience in. Now, most folks want to know, hey, can I get more money? Is there a way for me to sweeten this deal? And that answer is very individual, right? We need to hear the facts of a particular circumstance. We need to really get an understanding of what was going on there to be able to give the best advice on how we can get more money, if, of course, we can. But there are also a number of other clauses in severance agreements that the response about why is this included here or what does this mean is pretty universal, pretty uniform. So I thought we could walk through some of these and play a little game of I talk about the particular clause and you tell our viewers what they mean. Are you up for that?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
The first is that an individual has no legal entitlement to this severance amount over and above what they otherwise earned while working for this employer. And a lot of times people will say to us, well, wait a minute, of course I'm entitled to my severance. What do you say to them?
Amanda, this confuses a lot of people. It has to do with a legal concept called consideration. Consideration is required in order for a contract to be enforceable. Each side has to give something, each side has to get something. And if your employer is just giving you something you're already entitled to, then the contract is not enforceable. That's why the contract says you're getting something you wouldn't otherwise be entitled to. If, for example, they were paying you your wages from the work you did last week and nothing else, that's not a severance that's going to make the severance agreement enforceable. They have to be giving you something extra, something beyond what you were already entitled to, and then they recite that in the contract in order to make clear to everybody, but really in order to make clear to some judge down the road if necessary, that there was consideration for the agreement and therefore the contract is an enforceable one.
Number two, this one really ruffles people's feathers. A no rehire clause. The employer is saying to this former employee who is signing this, we will not rehire you again ever in the future. In fact, we won't even review your application if you make one. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, some people really take offense at this. Other people think, I don't know why I'd ever want to go work there again anyway. So it sort of varies by our client. But what I say to the clients who are upset about this is, this actually has nothing to do with you. It's in almost every agreement. And the reason is that employers are concerned that you will bring a claim against them, settle that claim, and then start applying for jobs in the future. And when you don't get those jobs, sue for retaliation. And because you cannot make a contract that waives your future claims, you cannot make a contract that says, I won't sue you in the future for something that happens in the future. The only way for the employer to defend themselves against that very unlikely scenario where you were to apply for a bunch of jobs, get rejected from them, and then sue for retaliation is for you to agree now that you are not going to apply for those jobs in the future. But what I tell my clients is, listen, your employer can always change their mind. If leadership changes, if ownership changes, and they decide they really want you back, they can waive this clause and they can invite you to apply. They can offer you a job. There's no reason that this would be a barrier to your future employment at the company if the company and you want to make that happen at some future point in time.
Number three, these severance agreements include a number of promises that the employee is making. Think of confidentiality, non disparagement, or the release of claims. A lot of employees will ask, well, why aren't these mutual promises? Why isn't there reciprocity in these severance agreements? What do you say to them?
There's a short answer and a long answer and then a caveat. The short answer is because you're not paying them any money, they're paying you. So they get some things, you get money, they get peace. That's the fundamental deal. The slightly longer reason is that the company is not in a position to promise what everybody who works for the company will do in most circumstances. For example, if they're asking you not to badmouth the company, you might say, well, why aren't they promising that the company won't badmouth me? Well, because the company might have dozens or hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of employees, and the company can't possibly promise that all of those people are going to say or not say something about you in the future for all time. There is a caveat here, which is that I think one clause absolutely should be mutual in a contract, and that is if there is any alleged breach of the contract and one party is going to get attorney's fees in a dispute about that breach, that should be mutual. Let me say that differently. Often I see a clause that says, if you employee breach this contract and we have to sue you as a company, you have to pay for our lawyers. And Less often do I see a clause that says, and if we sue you and you win, we have to pay for your lawyers. Those clauses, what are called fee shifting provisions, really should be mutual. They should say, in any dispute concerning an alleged breach of this agreement, the prevailing party shall be entitled to its attorney's fees and costs. That is a clause that really should be mutual, but that doesn't mean that every clause in all severance agreements should be mutual. In all reality, they probably shouldn't be.
Thank you so much, Josh. This was fun. Thank you for watching. Remember, severance agreements are contracts. We always recommend that you sit down and you review them in their totality with an employment lawyer so they could tackle these issues and also ones that may be individual to you and the severance agreement that your former employer is asking you to sign. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.